you look at the Warriors now. There's a good number of them that have sort of come from the city. It's just a case of whether or not Wellington could handle another sports team. I mean, we've got the Hurricanes here, we've got the Phoenix, and both of them are already sort of struggling to get really the sort of crowd numbers that you'd like to see from a sort of professional sporting outfit. It's just, I guess it really does boil down to whether or not it's actually going to be feasible for them to run it here.
Would we get good enough crowds?
I don't know. I'd like to think so. I mean, I'm not 100% sure about the league following in Wellington. I imagine it's relatively strong, but at the same time, I mean, you'd think rugby union is also very strong here. I mean, look at the Hurricanes. Admittedly, they're not a performing team, but they're not really getting the crowds you'd want. The Phoenix having one of their best seasons on record. Actually, one of the best seasons of any of the sort of domestic New Zealand teams that have played in the Australian League. And their owners had to come out and do all sorts of deals and kind of cut prices to get people to just come down to the game. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's really would be a sort of.
My preferred option is a Christchurch team that plays a few games in Dunedin. We got 20,000. I think a few of us were there when we played the Roosters in Christchurch a couple of years ago in terrible weather. The Warriors did, and I think that Christchurch people would love their sport generally. I think they'd really back it, and the new stadium in Dunedin is a boomer. So
would be good.
Yeah.
Would you consider a split Wellington, Christchurch, Dunedin, or do you think it has to be?
Nah, you can't split it up that much. Or can you?
I don't know. Yeah, I've always really thought Wellington or nothing, but yeah, I don't think we'd get the crowds. To be honest, it's a fickle sporting public here. The Phoenix.
They've got too many things already.
Yeah, it's just saturated, isn't it?
Kind of like the south of the Bombay Hills franchise.
Yeah.
No, I do like the idea of a South Island franchise, but it's probably less viable than the Wellington option.
And I just don't think league is big enough sport down there.
So Perth might be the next place to get a club. Yeah.
Bigger population, obviously all sorts of money coming in from their mines, and they can probably swallow those losses a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's age-old questions though about the Western Reds. Expansion
right.
hasn't always gone that well in the past for leagues. So when you go to areas where it's not popular already.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, if New Zealand did get another franchise, let's be honest, it would actually probably be another Auckland-based franchise. That's probably the most realistic option that we've got. I just can't see it any other way at the moment.
I would agree with you on the Christchurch call, and this is purely on the basis of stadium size, because Westpac is just too big for an NRL team, and the fact that the Rugby League Park in Christchurch is getting upgraded, 20,000, perfect. And if you get a smallish crowd in a 20,000 seated stadium, it's not going to look that bad. But when you watch the Phoenix and the Hurricanes, when you see those empty seats, it's just terrible.
But regardless of the aesthetics of it, it's bums on seat, it's money, it's how many people you get through the door.
True.
It's how much money are you cutting? Are you breaking even, let alone making any money? And I think we were discussing earlier about the difficulties of making any money when you're actually running a sports team. I think it'd be very difficult.
I think you're right on stadium size too. It's pretty depressing watching the Roosters and the Bunnies play to 10 to 12,000 people in an ANZ stadium.
Awful.
It's depressing seeing that.
Here's a question: what team would you cull from the competition?
The Cronulla Sharks. Without any
Straight
question.
away?
Yeah. Poor crowd size, and not recruiting anytime soon. There are too many teams based in Sydney. No obvious merger. Already enough teams in the south side. Get rid of them.
Sharks and the Orcas.
It's good. That's good.
Not bad.
Yeah,
there was some talk of the Sharks moving up to the Central Coast a couple of years back.
That would be the relocation.
Yeah.
I mean, Central Coast is pretty strong, but
let's not forget that the Sharks they were established in 1967. You're talking. Yet
to win a premiership.
Hey, regardless of that, they've been around for the best part of half a century. You can't really take that away from them.
They do have good heritage, though. I mean, Andrew Eddinghausen.
Eddinghausen was a great player. That's not a good enough reason to keep him.
Peachy, yeah.
Apricot.
Yeah. Rimatawa and Nikau played for them.
He did.
He did too.
Yeah.
In the back end of his career.
Jason Stevens.
He's having legal troubles at the moment.
Yeah, he is,
currently,
actually.
yeah. It's unfortunate.
Weren't the Sharks your favourite team back in the day, Walter?
They were. I've renounced them.
And I mean,
Big way.
they're signing
Paul
class players
Gallen's
such as
racism
such
has
as
done
Todd
it for
Carney.
me.
You know, I mean, we've got Todd Carney on board now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you got to be a little bit careful before you start sort of writing off teams like that. You know?
They
I mean,
are.
let's be honest. Who's going to go first? The Sharks, or the Warriors.
The Sharks.
Sharks.
Let's be, no.
Warriors get great hope club.
From a competition perspective, of course.
Right. I think we'll struggle to get a second New Zealand team at this stage, but the Warriors are safe. And now I want to throw it over to Taro Ishida, who's at the World Desk.
Speaking
What do you
of
got for
World
us?
Disc, I've the World Disc is just sort of temporarily gone missing at the moment, unfortunately.
Okay, no, I think I've got it here. And in the meantime, I can tell you that we're 12:07 into the All Whites Jamaica game, and it's 0-0. And in other news, we are getting pumped in the second one day at Napier. We didn't score enough runs, and fortunately, that's a series loss.
Is
I
it?
would predict. Well, they're
Yeah.
2 down, and they're 150 or something. It's not looking very good.
Okay.
Right.
If you could just stand up there,
I
Chad.
Sit.
thought you'd be able to reel most of those world game stats.
I thought that was yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
actually.
okay. Well, in the interim, I've
Nothing
just got an
surprising,
interesting injury to bring up with you, which is
Please do.
unfortunately become pre-season, and it does involve a good Kiwi player, Sean Kenny Dow. He had an incident at training last week where he thought it was a knee injury, and he went home and went to the bathroom and he started urinating blood. So he drove himself to the hospital, and turned out he had a bruised and ruptured kidney, and his playing future now is it's really looking a little bit unknown. There's no sort of timeline on recovery for that sort of injury. And as the doctor said when he visited them, they sort of compared it to a sort of more of a car accident type injury. So that's the sort of impact that he must have.
Was it a training injury?
It was a training injury, yeah.
Was SKD? He was Dalian Centre of the Year last year.
Yeah, I think he was.
I believe he was.
Was it the year before?
That is
before,
so
I think.
sad to a
Before.
talented player. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to jump to any conclusions yet. I do hope that he
yeah,
makes
well,
a full recovery, but
That's a bizarre injury.
yeah. So there's certainly no sort of timeline on when he's expected to return.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he was in great shape, and looking forward to a big season.
Just staying on bizarre injuries. Here's one I read the other day. Charles Barkley, back in the day, was at a Eric Clapton concert. And
That in itself is.
so he was looking at the lights at an Eric Clapton concert and was temporarily blind. And he had this kind of
in an Eric Clapton concert.
yeah, I don't know how that works, but
Great light show.
he had some kind of lotion on his fingers, and so he rubbed his eyes, and it burnt his eyelids. he missed the first 5 games or something.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're going to say 5 songs of the season.
Yeah,
It's
that's
unfortunate.
yeah, that's an injury.
Well, you don't go to an Eric Clapton concert just to look at him, do you? It would have been sweet.
Wouldn't have
Yeah.
picked Charles as a Clapton fan, but
Yeah, he's a strange man.
He is a strange man.
Anyway, everyone here at Stacks on the Mill, to both Charles and Sean, we hope you get well soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
So, Will Desk is back on board.
World Desk is back on board.
Let's go to the World Disc.
Let's throw it over.
Yep. So very, very exciting news for some new up and coming nations in the rugby league world. We've got the Moroccan league nearing kickoff, and the Philippines in the process of starting their competition to end looking at a kickoff for 2012.
Good.
Yep. And the Italian league. I'm not too sure if you guys are aware. There was a bit of a split, a Super League like split.
oh yeah.
Yeah. So there's a bit of strife in there, and they're looking for a unified competition because the Rebel League got Olympic recognition. So it's going to be interesting what happens in the next few months. And from Serbia, my main man, Dalibor Dokovic, got named Serbian Rugby League Player of the Year. So congratulations.
Yeah.
Great Serbian halfback.
Is he related to Novak?
Possibly.
Down the line.
So it's a very good, strong family, sporting family.
Mm.
And Tara, if some of our listeners would like to watch some footage from the Jamaican Rugby League competition, what was that competition that we were watching recently involving the American commentator who was using gridiron terms for the Rugby League commentary?
I think that was a World Cup qualifier actually. I think they were playing a rugby league team from the States that was stacked with stars such as Apple Pope. The Pope brothers, Apple and Taco Pope.
Yeah.
Taco Pope.
Yeah. They play for the Jacksonville X-Men.
And instead of calling it a forward pass, they'd call it a forward lateral.
But yeah, that's all from the World Desk for now. But I'll have some exciting news from Jamaica and Lebanon next week.
Excellent. We look forward to that.
A truly international game.
We can only dream. And speaking of those dreams, let's clock into Dream Team Central. Matt Peters dominates that, so I'll ask him for any tips he's got to offer on the upcoming season. Given we're 24 hours away from lockout, basically.
24 hours away from lockout. The countdown's on. Knights, Dragons tomorrow night. 9:30, it's all over. There's a few bargains to be had this year. Adam Reynolds in the halves, 77k.
He's just a no-brainer, isn't he?
He's a no-brainer. He's going to make some good money, and he should score well. He'll score well enough to put him in your 17 from the word go. For those of you who haven't played Dream Team or seen the new system this year, there's been a few scoring changes, a lot more emphasis on attacking play, which is good, I think. We're really going to reward those backs a bit more. But yeah, there's a few bargains. Obviously, you go through the team sheets, which all came out yesterday, and there's looking for those new players in there. Cameron Serrato at the Panthers, starting in the second row. He represents great value at 150k. Neville Costigan, starting in that Knights forward pack. He could be a good little pickup. He's relatively cheap as well.
Notoriously bad scorer though, because he started in past teams.
He's cheap. He's cheap. He could be worth getting on board.
Wouldn't the bargains be in the backs just with the new scoring system? I mean, I've been looking at Conrad Harrell now.
Yeah, Harrell is cheap. Got him in the team.
With back scoring more, it's...
But they have changed the prices to reflect the new scoring. The opening prices have been changed to reflect that new scoring system.
New backs.
Yeah.
Would be
any new players they have forward backs up, snap them up. I think there'll be plenty of people all over Harrell though.
Yeah, my picks would be James Tedesco, starting fullback here at the Tigers. His price is about 77,000.
What's Maltson up to at the moment?
He was, I can't remember off the top of my head, I think it was maybe 140, something along.
Yeah. But why is he not starting?
He's
starting.
At 7.
Oh, at 7, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's another possible no-brainer, really.
Yeah, actually, that's a good call.
He's priced as a fullback, but
He's the good.
This year he could have a big season inside Benji.
Yeah. And my other pick was from the Roosters. Lamatasi, starting prop, 150,000. Now that obviously Nate Miles is gone, filling that starting role, so he could be an intriguing pick. Now the question is whether or not he's going to get the minutes to be able to put up big scores. But when you look at the bench, you have Arona, Mosi Masoi, and Martin Kennedy.
I'm surprised Kennedy's not starting because he had a great year.
He did.
Started the year strongly last year.
He did.
And you have Warre Hargreaves as the other prop, so I'd say the rotation will probably be based around Warre Hargreaves because he's not exactly the most fittest player.
Yeah, none of them are really huge minute props,
are
they?
So I've got a feeling Tassi may get some decent minutes and some good scores, and I think he'd be a pretty good investment.
One to look out for.
Yeah. Obviously, Jerome Ropati coming back from injury as well at 100,000.
We know how much you love Jerome.
Yep, very risky. I didn't actually pick him.
Okay.
Would you consider trading him into your team if you had a good few weeks?
Never.
He's blacklisted.
Blanket ban.
Him and Paul Gallen.
Yeah.
Paul Gallen is
on principle.
On principle.
That's quite acceptable. That's quite acceptable.
Yeah. Now I was just wondering who you guys have for your top 8 this year.
Well, I mean, we've had a brief chat about this, and I think a lot of the predictions are pretty obvious because we've got a couple of people who are picking just the same top 8 as last year.
I think